So now I'm going to try to write this basic price parser using what I call TTDD, which means Timeboxed TDD. Well, it's timeboxed in two ways. The first thing is timeboxing a micro feature you are going to implement. The whole story started like a few years ago. I started like implementing something or refactoring something like at nights, and I started refactoring and I had like 10 broken tests. Then I started refactoring a little bit more. Then I had like 30 broken tests. Then I was just going further and further for like hours. And like after 4 or 5 hours developing without saving my change, without making a commit, I was like, oh, okay, I can't go further. Like half of the tests were broken. So I just went to bed, and the day after, the first thing I ran on my computer was I opened the terminal and I just reverted all the changes. And from that day, I swore I wouldn't make a change that would take me more than 30 minutes without breaking anything. So the idea is to try to make the smallest change you can do, and every time you commit and push something, of course, it should work. So it's all about micro changes. That day, I bought a 30 minutes hourglass. And from that day, every time I do something, it's time boxed. Like even reading my emails in the morning, it's just like a time box of 30 minutes. So that maybe that's why for those who sent me some emails I didn't respond to, maybe that's related. Anyway, so this is the idea is that I noticed that us like developers at least, well, like when we work on something, we will get too technical and we go deep in that thing, and we always, even with TDD, even with everything, we forget about the origins. Problem with TCR is that even with TCR, nothing stops you. Like you can just keep improving that thing, improving performance, etc. And then at one point, like you look around you and you're like, oh, I thought it was 10 a.m., but it's 10 p.m. And then you're like, oh, that's why I'm hungry. And I don't know if you know about that feeling. So that's why I need something in front of me, not something annoying. It's not Pomodoro. It's not something that beeps or anything. It's just I want to watch the time whenever I want to check it out. And if it's empty, I'm like, oh, okay. So now I have to assess what I've done for 30 minutes. Does it make sense? Should I still go into this direction? Did it really take me 30 minutes to do this? Should I stop? Should I go? Anyway, it works for everything because we were all like, okay, it's going to take me 5 minutes. Then once you start, it's not. Anyway, so it's good to have something like to control the time, and so you can analyze, you can assess if you should keep up or not. It's not just about like the commit, the changes, are they working or not? It's about like the whole feature. Oh, I was planning to implement like this function that just adds this to this, and it should take less than 30 minutes. And 30 minutes afterwards, like having this big, huge code, and it's still not making the job. So maybe at that point, you should think about reverting and thinking about another solution. So that's also the way I choose my tools. Like once I was working with the team and we're all hesitating, should we use this CI or this CI? I was like, oh, let's stop talking. Let's just run a 30 minutes timer, and we make 2 teams with which of the teams will use different CIs. We'll try to set it up. And the first team that makes something work after 30 minutes, then we'll use that thing. And if after 30 minutes we have nothing working, then we'll have like a 1-minute discussion. So, okay, are you close from the goal or not? And then let's go again. Well, actually, it took 20 minutes to make the decision instead of discussing. Anyway, so let's do this in the TTDD fashion, but with another constraint I'm going to add here, because the problem is that you want to make more commits than just like one every 30 minutes probably. So because you want to share your changes with others, because if you don't, you're going to end up with having to create pull requests and having to merge things and conflicts and blah, blah, or go into some misleading direction. And still, so this time again, I'm going to use this plugin called Limited WIP and on IntelliJ or WebStorm or whatever. And this time I disabled TCR and I'm using this funny feature called auto revert. And I love it because it just reverts your code if you don't make a commit like every X minutes. Actually, I don't recommend using any big value because seriously, if you lose like 2 hours of work, well, I don't know how it would feel. So for this kind of basic things, I'm going to use 2 minutes timer. So when you start the timer here at the bottom, and well, actually you can cheat, you can stop it and start it again, but you don't want to do this. You want to be serious. So the cool thing is that imagine you're like writing something here, okay, and then you have the timer, and then you receive a text or something, you have Twitter notification or anything. Then you think about the timer and you're like, oh, the timer is there. If I respond to this email, the timer will reset. I'm going to lose my changes. What am I going to do? And okay, you could stop the timer, but but it's better if you don't. So it's just keep focused. You have this timer just waiting for you. Anyway, and it will encourage you to make small changes. The only problem I noticed is that for the moment, the plugin will just start counting even if you don't make a change. So you have to stop it and start it when you start working. Otherwise, if like here I'm talking, at the moment I'm going to start writing, I'll have 10 seconds. It's going to be too short. Or maybe it's not. I don't know. So let's do this with the TDD. TDD actually. Anyway, so scrap or parse price.spec.ts. And oh yeah, this time I set up my tests to run to watch the changes this time. So it's way better than what we used to have with TCR, because I had to run the tests manually to get reports. A clean report with my current changes. So now I can see, okay, it must contain at least one test. Okay, I'm going to create like parse price. Okay, still has to contain the test should contain a test like this. Parse price. I'm almost out of time because I speak a lot. Let's exclude this test. Okay, so let's make our commit. Okay, so I'm gonna make some change, like added parse price empty spec. So here, that's what I like about this way of working, is that I get more explicit commit messages, and I'm going to push the change. And while you're committing and pushing, you're not coding, so there's no conflict or race condition or anything, no special tooling or anything, it's just working. And when you push, the counter will reset to its initial value. Okay, so here, what I want to parse a price. Let's remove hello spec. And even if I'm not in TDD, I'm just like, okay, I use a lot of, even if I'm not in TCR, I make a lot of commits. So when you use the trash, oh, the broom is better. It was added last year, and I use a lot of images in the commits, so it makes the changelog easier to read. It'll be like removed useless spec. Okay, some people will say like, oh, okay, you're just describing what you did and can be seen in the logs, but we'll see that later. And the cool thing is that here there's value in the message, because it says, okay, I'm saying I'm removing this because the spec is useless. I say it's useless, but someone would be like, oh, this is not useless. We should, oh, this is the commit that removed it. Why did you do that at that point, etc. Anyway, and I'm gonna parse the price, which is blah, 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 to, and I want this to equal, and as you can see, my tests are running here, and I can compare to what I want. I'm not going to do this here, so I can create the function global price string, okay, throw not implemented error, remove this, remember deprecated because it's work in progress, and can do that. It's good. Tests are always test excluded, so you have not test running. I'm gonna make commit created parse price empty parse price function. I could have used a 5 minutes timer, which still makes sense, but anyway, I'm gonna create an interface. I do this because I wanna have some auto completion, so I need coefficient. It's okay, exponent -2, currency should be null, so I can run this, so it considers that the test is excluded. Let's try it. Okay, it's not implemented yet, so it makes sense. So I'm going to exclude the tests and price without currency, and I'm going to make a change price spec. And I can add all my other excluded scenarios, like should parse price currency, and like I did before with TCR with currency symbol, and I can comment, okay, what I want is like something like example, let's give it an example like this, and we know that we're going to expect something like coefficient blah blah blah, exponent -2, and currency to be well, 2 minutes might seem a little bit extreme, so you can change in, like, you can start with 30 minutes, then progressively lower the value to 10 minutes, then 5 minutes. Will depend on the technology you're using, on the complexity of the program. And let's make a change. Added additional empty specs with currency symbol. Okay. Now, the cool thing with TDD is that if I enable this test again and it just fails, I can add a breakpoint and I can debug. And now I can go into the function and see, okay, this is the parameter I get. So it fails, of course, because it's not implemented, obviously. So I can go back to my TDD and keep on working on that. If I want to debug, like if I do like some old school debugging, I can do this. It just works great. And I can see, okay, that's what I get. This line. Okay, I'm just gonna roll back this. And okay, now that I finished my debugging and fooling around, I can enable my auto revert, and before doing anything or applying any change, the first thing I'm going to do is to revert all my changes. Okay, so I revert everything, and okay, here we go. Oh, the timer didn't restart. I'm gonna restart it, and let's work on that. So, okay, the test is failing. I can check that out if I want. I can start returning price string. Of course, the typing is not good, so I might have some trouble here with a typing error. I can read the error and I can see why I had the error. I can see the code in front of the error. I get the error which matches the code. So that's also some symmetry we need here that we lose with TCR sometimes. So, okay, so now I can add this, but it needs a number, so I'm going to use parse int. It needs an exponent, and it needs currency, because none of those are optional. And now I'm like, oh, okay, it's parse int. Sorry for that. I need a float. I'm missing some information. Plus, oh, I need to multiply by something. So if I mistakenly multiply by 10, I'll see the result, and it hints me about, maybe I should round this, because multiplying by 100 might be a bit fragile or dangerous. Anyway, I have this test that works, and I can commit my change before the rollback happens. Now, okay, parse price, now parse price the currency. Okay, this was something I had in my history. I'm going to commit and push this. Okay. So the other point I'm not showing here, but which requires commit messages, is that, you know, sometimes you might run some tool. If you're using Angular or anything like this, any tool that has a CLI or command line interface that allows you to generate code, then it needs some boilerplate there. So you just run a command and it generates like a bunch of files. It can be one file, it can be 3 files, it can be 10 files with 100 of lines. And this is how it works. And when we create those files, we need to make a specific commit message that says, okay, I just created these files. It's just been generated with this command line. So where should I put this commit message that says I generated these files using this this command line? So that's the point. So I hope this helps seeing a little bit the difference that there is between TDD and TCR and TTDD, which will allow you to time box not only when you code, but every commit, but it will also time box what you're working on. So if you decided to spend 30 minutes on something, then it's 30 minutes, not more. And if you need more, then you have to decide after 30 minutes if you want to go further or not. So this is all it's a little bit of a mix of my thoughts about TDD, TTD, and TCR. So you should definitely experiment all those three and find your way to make the smallest changes ever. I hope this helps, and see you. Thank you. Bye.